What does it really take to go from brand new model to walking in some of the biggest fashion weeks in the country, all in under 2 years? That's exactly what Carrie Seller did. She hit the runway at New York Fashion Week, Miami Swim Week, and Art Basel, Las Vegas Swim Week, Phoenix Fashion Week, and more.
I never even thought I would be doing this. And then I'm like, oh my God, I made Phoenix Fashion Week. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm walking in Miami. Oh my God, I'm walking in New York. Like, what?
When did you feel like you're starting to create something out of this?
Honestly, one of my most pivotal moments was
moving to Arizona with unexpected changes. She wasted no time showing up, networking at every event, never missing a casting. Today, we dive into the hustle, the mindset, the challenges, and the wins behind Carrie's rise, and what it really takes to make big steps in the modeling world. Dang.
So that was really, really difficult. And that's where I was really able to had forced to draw on my experience as an athlete. I moved in the middle of the summer, going through all these changes. What I told myself was that during that summer, I was gonna kind of just say yes to everything that I could, like my summer of yes. That experience has made me braver to bet on myself.
Great way to start off the podcast.
Hey guys, Carrie Seller.
Right? So, just kind of to start off, how did you kind of start in modeling, or do you want to start off with getting to Arizona? How do you kind of want to start off your story?
Yeah, it all kind of ties together, to be honest, is, in 2023, I was planning to move to Arizona for my job at the time. I also had been in a relationship for about 8 years, and we broke up right before I moved to Arizona. And so I was just going through a huge life shift in many different ways, right? Moving across the country, going through a different relationship and family situation. My ex had kids, and so I had kind of, been in that era of life, of, being part of a family unit. And I also was transitioning. I was with the same company, but transitioning jobs and the place of work, essentially, not being remote, but now being in state with the company. Just all of the kind of life shifts at once. And so I moved in June, which people were like, oh, you're moving to Arizona at that time of year. Good luck.
Honestly though.
And it was that summer that I think it was July. We had every single day of July was over 110 degrees.
Oh, you came in that summer? It was the hottest one too. It was consecutive amount of time.
Right, yeah.
But I felt like I had mentally prepared. I was okay, when I moved to Arizona, I was prepared for the heat, and I also was trying to mentally prepare for scorpions.
Right.
Which I still haven't even seen one.
I was about to say you probably haven't even seen one.
You'd be way out in the desert, That's funny.
One of my friends, when they first moved here, they said that they turned on their sink and a scorpion came out of the sink. And
I can see that.
Have you had a crazy scorpion experience?
Never to me, but people around me. My mom, I remember she went to go throw her slippers on or whatever, and there was it crawled up her leg and stung her or whatever. So
biggest thing is if there's a tool shed or whatever, that's where you don't want to be because they're for sure scorpions.
Honestly, growing up in Arizona, I'm more worried about black widow spiders than I am scorpions.
Gotcha.
True.
So I don't know. But that's funny that you bring up scorpions because I feel like that's so tied in with Arizona.
It's also cliche, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, so I moved in the middle of the summer, going through all these changes, and what I told myself was that during that summer I was gonna kind of just say yes to everything that I could, my summer of yes, right? Mm-hmm. I was single for the first time in a long time, and I essentially tried to take it as this is my opportunity to figure out who I am at this age in this era of my life. I'd been with someone for 8, basically in my mind I was almost a decade. It's a long time to go from when you're by yourself to then being by yourself again without being part of a unit. And so I was let me just kind of try to be as authentic to who I am as I can be and not have any fear or anything surrounding it. I feel like I've been given this fresh start for a reason. So, you know, if somebody, even if it's not something I would normally do, let me say yes. Like if someone's like, let's go whitewater rafting, I'll be like, okay. Like if someone's like, let's do a pool day, even if I was like kind of tired, I'd be like, okay. Like any like social invitations I was getting or like opportunities, I was just like, I'm just going to say yes and I'm just going to go.
Nice.
So when I got a DM from Phoenix Fashion Week that was like, come to our model casting for the polo party.
What? Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Before we get
I
there,
was about to say, wait. I was about to say, yeah,
happen?
like why?
What did you mean?
Right. So, okay, so to backtrack, so shout out Fabulous Arizona, because when I first moved out here, I started following that account and was like, oh, this seems like an account that is shouting out either new businesses or like, you know, parties or events that are happening. And I'm like, this seems like a place where I can kind of figure out what's the cool stuff to do in Arizona.
Gotcha.
So I'm following them,
gotcha.
and you know, I'd like message Cynthia a number of times just to be like, thank you so much for this account. Like I'm like figuring out Scottsdale and Arizona. And at one point she like posted one of those things that was like, you know, like, comment, and share with a friend to be entered for 2 tickets to Scottsdale Fashion Week. And so, you know, I liked, comment, and tagged a friend or shared with a friend. And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, I get a DM that's like, you've won 2 tickets to Scottsdale Fashion Week. And I was like,
What?
is this, am I being punked? Like, is this real? You know, you never
Yeah.
think you're like going to win something like that. So I win the tickets. I end up going with a few friends to Scottsdale Fashion Week.
What year was that?
2023, I
Okay.
think.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that was the first year I was filming it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then
That's
there you go.
crazy.
And that's
Uh-huh.
also what I've learned about Arizona is like, you're always like 1 degree from someone. Like you end up having so many mutuals with like people that
Yeah,
you
especially in the
connect with.
fashion space here in Arizona, for sure.
So anyway, so I go to Scottsdale Fashion Week. I love it. I've always loved fashion. I've always like enjoyed that kind of thing. And I'm like, this is up my alley. Like, this is cool. I end up sitting next to a guy who's like taking all these videos of the runway, but he's like sitting by himself. And so I was like, oh, do you know one of the models? And he's like, yeah, my daughter just signed with Ford. And like, you know, she's walking, this is her first show. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. So like, just these little like synchronicities where I'm kind of like, And at this point, I'm like, I'm not tall enough to be a model. I'm not young enough. Like, I'm thinking you have to be like 16, like, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, well, this was cool. You know, maybe I'll go to more of these types of events. Fast forward to the fact that one of my friends who I went to that event with had gotten free tickets to go to the polo party, which I've also learned that Arizona is all about like, let's do these sporting events, but they're really like parties, but they're sporting events too, like the Waste Management Open,
Any excuse
polo
to drink.
party.
Any excuse to drink. That's Arizona
Yeah.
for sure.
But at the same time, like it's also cool because there are places that don't have like cool events that are, you know, it is just literally like go to a party. Like at least here there's like cool stuff to
Fun
do.
aspects
Yeah,
to it,
yeah. But anyway, so he had gotten free tickets to the polo party, so I like follow that account, and then I start noticing that I'm like, okay, first of all, Scottsdale Fashion Week, I thought it was just like New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week. I didn't realize that the fashion world had so many additional like productions and
Small shows.
That's me right now. Like every time we do a new interview and they're like, I'm just like baffled with like, there's just so
Yeah.
much to it. There's
Yeah.
so much to it.
Right, exactly. And now that I understand it more, like it totally makes sense. But when your you know, perception is so limited, you're just like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. So then I start noticing, I'm like, oh, Arizona Fashion Week, Phoenix Fashion Week, Chandler Fashion Week. Like I'm seeing all these different fashion weeks, and I kind of just start following them because I'm like, well, I want to go watch whatever these things are when they come
Yeah.
up. And so I think I had followed Phoenix Fashion Week, I'd followed the polo party, and at one point they posted, you know, maybe it was like a collaborative post, or maybe it was Phoenix Fashion Week posted like, come to our model casting for the polo party. And so I think I just liked the post, and then I got a DM from them that was like, hey, don't forget to come to our model casting this Wednesday.
Wow.
And in my mind, I was like,
You're like,
was this
"Should
meant
I
for
go?"
me? Yeah.
Like,
right, I was like, is this an automated message that they sent to anyone who liked it? Or do they think I'm a model? Because like, that's like, I'm flattered.
Before this, did you have any modeling experience at all or anything like that?
Not really. Nothing like serious. I mean, when I was like a kid, I grew up in Southern California. And so I had done like, when I was like a baby and like a little kid, I had done some like modeling and acting like very young, to the point where it was like, you know, and this is before the internet, like this is like my mom just like getting casting
digital
calls.
cameras and stuff like that. Yeah, I got you.
So I just had like, you know, I knew what like a comp card and a headshot were, but like that was kind of it. Like I didn't really know much more than that. And I remember specifically I had been part of this thing called John Robert Powers that was like a development agency, I think, for like talent, for like modeling, acting, whatever, for kids at that age. They had classes and they had, they would like send you out on casting calls and stuff. Okay. And I remember my mom and I stood in this room with this lady. I don't even remember the context, but she was like, okay, I want you to like walk down back and forth like as if you were walking a runway. And so I did it, and the lady was like, it was pretty good. And then she looks at my mom, she goes, how tall is your husband? And my mom's 5'4", and my dad's probably 5'9", I mean, maybe. And I remember she was like, runway modeling is probably not going to be her thing. Let's focus on acting.
Gotta get out of here.
Right. So in my mind, like I had this, and I think we all do this to ourselves. We have this like limited perception based on like what other people have told us, which is understandable. It's just human nature. But at the same time, like we shouldn't always accept those like limiting beliefs. Like we should always look to see like, okay, maybe I was told this or that at one point, but maybe God has a different plan for me, or maybe there's a way to make it work, and the world evolves. And like, as you guys know, like modeling is more broad now. There's more, shapes, sizes, age ranges, I mean, they've just diversified things so much in many aspects of the world, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I get this DM and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to this casting because I've told myself I'm going to go. But what I thought to myself was, I was like, what is the worst case scenario here? Like, I was so nervous because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm walking into. But what is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is that I go in there, make a total fool of myself, but I don't know any of these people. I've just moved here. If I fall flat on my face, the worst thing is that it's a hilarious story for later. It's just part of the plot of my life.
Did it,
Exactly. Like I at least like had the guts to go and do it. And if it's, just a funny story for later, that it's like, oh, one time I went to this thing and fell on my face and made a fool of myself. But I was like, but the best thing that can happen is that either something comes of it, which obviously like it did launch me into all these other things, or like, maybe I meet a new friend, or maybe I network and maybe I meet some more people in Arizona. I'm like, there's no like downside really to like taking a chance on yourself. And I feel like I've now seen that pattern repeated over the past couple of years as I've gotten into the fashion world, that experience has made me braver to like bet on myself. And I feel like I wouldn't have even gotten there if I hadn't gone through a breakup and moved across the country and done all these things, because it's like sometimes God has to like push you to your knees before you're like in the position to be like, okay, I'm surrendering. I'm just gonna like let things happen.
How long was it from when you moved to Arizona that all that started happening? Because it's seeming like you're at least good at networking. Like, you know what to look for to find the people that you need to talk to. Like, were you always good at that?
So I definitely feel like I've always been like gregarious, like a people person. I moved in beginning of June, and that casting I think took place in October of that year.
So you had like 4 months to like figure who to talk to, what to figure out.
Yeah, and I had like made some friends in Arizona already, a lot through my prior, which is still kind of the industry that I'm in, which is the cheerleading world. I was a competitive cheerleader for a lot of my life, and I worked in that industry full time for a number of years. And now I still dabble in certain aspects of it. But I've just always kind of been a people person. I also have a background in sales and like customer service. So like that, I think also helped me learn to network and just to be able to have conversations with people.
For sure.
And I also, through this whole thing really very quickly, I obviously already had social media, but I really learned the power of like the tool that we have in social media in today's day and age. And I was just like, oh, I used to feel weird being like, can I get your Instagram or whatever? And like, now I've learned that is like today's business card. You connect with somebody on Instagram. Then, one of the things that I've always really made sure to do as a model is always tag everybody that's involved, whether it's the photographer, the stylist, the the assistant, the creative director, the the people that are in like the logistics of whatever show or photo shoot, because not only is that like genuine to who I am, that like I want to give credit to everyone who's involved, because so much hard work goes on behind the scenes that like the model just like gets to be the face of, and not that models, we obviously work very hard too, but like there's just, I feel like that sometimes goes
unseen. Yeah, because it's all behind the scenes. Yeah, you really have to like really know what the people behind the scenes are doing to make that happen.
Exactly. And so even that like took some time, and I remember very distinctly at the like group photo shoot that we did with Phoenix Fashion Week when I was part of Top 40, that I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like before I started modeling, I'm like photographer, designer, model. That's it, right? Like when you think of a photo shoot, because that's all the average person sees. But I was like, oh my gosh, like there's people that had to plan every aspect of this shoot, from securing the venue to, what I used to do in cheerleading, which is like, the logistics of it. You have to arrange how many tables and chairs, and are the tables skirted, and do you need power drops, and then production and lighting and all the different things that go into it. So I just feel like by trying to learn what everybody does, that's helped me network, and like, by tagging people, then they start sharing it to their story, and then you connect with other people, and just different things like that. I feel like have kind of, I've been able to utilize some of those skills from my past world that I was in.
Yeah, so cheerleading kind of taught you a lot to just network with people and know how to talk to people or get into contact. So is that something that also helped you out a lot with modeling? Like, is there any correlation to that from cheerleading and modeling?
I've always loved athletics, but I've especially always found myself drawn to like performance sports. And so whether that was, dance or cheerleading or, I've always loved like being in front of a crowd and performing. Each thing that I've done has been a little bit different. And one of the biggest differences from cheerleading is that like you're usually out there with a whole team of people. Versus like as a model, a lot of times when you're on the runway, you're by yourself and like all eyes are on you, and that's a little bit different. But I did compete in some like individual cheerleading competitions as well.
I didn't know that was a thing.
It is. I'm actually a couple-time national champion in individual cheerleading in high school
was it
too.
three-time champ, world champ,
3-time world champion.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I've everything that like I've always found that when I do something, like I love to be. I'm always very like passionate about the things that I do and like put my time and energy into, and always like want to be the best at things, or I'm a perfectionist by nature, which I've had to like unlearn a little bit of that too, especially in this era of like it's okay to try new things. Like that was a big lesson of like this summer of newness, is that I was like, it's okay like to go into something, and it's okay to be a beginner.
Yeah, and like feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think we all, we work so hard at whatever we want to get good at, that then if we ever are forced to make like a pivot in life, it's scary, right? Because you have to all of a sudden go from like, people know me as this professional and I'm good at this and that. And then suddenly you have to be okay with like being vulnerable and being like, hey guys, like I haven't done this before, but it also forces you to get into a place of like, literally to just say that, and then to be like, but I'm here, I'm present, I'm ready to learn. And once you start doing it, like it has been just one of my favorite parts of my journey, I think, because it's actually so invigorating to be new at something and to be like learning something
and
again.
then to get good at it.
Yeah, because then you like build this new confidence, and then you go like, oh, I can like, I am good at other things than just the one thing I thought I was really good at.
How did you start getting better at the modeling? So like with cheer, did that like help you out with some of the like steps, movements, or like how did you kind of prepare for the modeling phase?
Yeah, so after I did the polo party with Phoenix Fashion Week, because I went to this casting, I ended up getting the casting, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this fashion show at the polo party, which I'm also at that point was like, what is that going to look like? I remember even the very first like practice that we had, Brian, the director, was like kind of showing us where to walk and what to do, and how to kind of like pace ourselves and whatnot. And I was like, oh, this is just like cheerleading choreography. And I found myself like it clicking with me more quickly than some of the other people that like maybe didn't have that type of background.
Yeah.
Where I kind
brand
of
new.
just like, yeah, I just kind of inherently knew some of the things he was saying, even though it was a little bit of a different language since it was modeling and not cheer. So I did find that that was helpful. I always joke, and not really joke, but like I always say like modeling is a sport because it is just as like physically and mentally demanding as other sports that I've played. And you know, you have to, in order to like get up on stage or on the runway and perform at the highest level, you have to be able to set aside everything else that's going on in your life. If you have, you know, stuff going on at home or in your personal life or whatnot, you have to lock in and have that mentality that it's like, I'm here to do a job and I can't let those outside things affect me.
Yeah.
Or if you make a misstep on the runway, as long as you keep, you know, your face, like half the time the camera isn't even seeing that, but as a beginner, you are afraid that
Conscious
like,
of it, for
yeah.
sure.
Or like I said, it's like as a cheerleader, there were other people on the floor. So you kind of have that like security of like, well, maybe everyone wasn't looking at me when that happened. But when you're a model, you know everyone was looking at you when
yeah,
it
like
happened.
we had Shannon on not too long ago, and one of the
Yeah,
best things that
yeah.
she said was that like when you practice, like whatever you practice is your default. Like
Yeah.
that's how like
Yep.
whatever happens, that's what you're gonna go down to. That
100%.
resonated with me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in cheerleading, I so many times heard my coaches say you perform how you practice, or you need to practice how you want to perform.
Yeah.
And in cheerleading, a lot of times that comes down to like, you know, what we call like facials, where you're like being expressive, essentially emoting and modeling, where you're like smiling or like, you know, performing to the crowd.
Yeah.
If you practice with like a straight face and you're just doing all your skills and marking it through, and then all of a sudden you get out there and you're doing all the skills, but you're like focused on remembering to smile and to like perform, suddenly that muscle memory is like confused because you can't just go into autopilot. You have to
Think about
be
it.
thinking about something, and like you need to, as Shannon said, be able to let your body like drop into autopilot in order to exude that confidence out there. And you do
Yeah.
always have to be like still at that level of awareness, like don't let your guard down completely, because you could step on your garment that you're modeling, or you could trip, or you could do something. So you have to like be ready for the unexpected to happen. I mean, I've had it where I've been walking
Yeah.
down the runway and there's been somebody standing on the runway taking a photo of someone in the crowd, and they told me to walk, so I'm walking, and I'm wearing angel wings, and I'm just like walking, and I'm in my head thinking, I hope this person moves, because I'm about to just like walk right over them, you know, or
I
like,
can't tell you how many like videos I have of someone just tripping, or like their heel kind of falls a little bit, and they're like, I have like, it happens, you know, but they're
Yeah.
all like, they get back up as if it didn't happen and keep on going, you know?
Exactly. And it's just like in life, it's like things are going to happen, but it's all about how you recover. And like, if you keep walking, but in your head, you're dwelling on the fact that that happened, it'll show all over your face. Like,
Yeah.
you can see it.
Face will get red
you have
or
to just,
whatever.
yeah, you have to just like let it go, let it be in the past. And then like, especially if the runway's long, it's like the people at the end of the runway didn't even see that happen. So like, let it go.
Exactly.
And then the
Right.
next models come in, like no one's even going to remember.
How
you
long
know?
did it take you to learn that, to like get to that phase to where you don't think about it?
I mean, I'm honestly still learning that all the time. I feel like there are definitely, but I also have to remind myself that like sometimes that is more in my head than it exudes to other people. Like, it's so true that like you can be confident enough to like showcase that on the outside. And I read a quote the other day that was so good. It was like, don't let the fact that you aren't perfect hold you back from saying that you're a professional at something. Because I think I've struggled with that.
That's good.
With like, you know, being like, I'm a model. Like, I am a model, right? I think that in the beginning I was like, oh, I'm like trying to do some modeling stuff. Like, I'm learning. I'm taking some classes. I've done some things. But like, I hesitated to say I'm a model because I just felt strange about it. But the sooner that you step into that and own that, like, other people don't know, and their life is going a mile a minute too, and they're not judging you the way that you're judging yourself in your head. And so Tiffany Ray, the designer, actually taught me this, that she's like, you know, if you show up and you say, I'm a fashion designer, I'm a costume designer, and people are like, okay, cool, put her in, like, da-da-da, and then that, like, gives you that opportunity to prove yourself, and a lot of times we're more ready for the next opportunity than we think we are. And so I feel like, to answer your question, I I'm still learning, but I definitely learned a lot of that from cheerleading. And then I think that with modeling, like I'm in a phase of like I can kind of do anything at the drop of the hat and like tell myself like you almost like gaslight yourself into being like I got this, and then it's like I don't know if I really got this, but I'm gonna tell myself I got this because everyone else needs to think that I do. And then most of the time you watch it back on video and you're like, oh yeah, it looked like I was
like
totally confident in it. And so I think the more you see that and you like actually watch it for yourself, then you go like, oh, like I am more ready than I thought I was. I am more polished at this than like I felt that I was before I was able to like see it for myself.
Yeah.
So, but it took, I would say like a year or so before I really started to like feel confident. I took a lot of classes with Shannon, with Kaylin, with I took some online classes. I, just tried to do as much as I could and, practicing at home.
That was like after the top 40 Phoenix Fashion Week?
No, this was like even leading up to. So like I did that polo party in October, November. And then between that and the casting for top 40, which was the next April, the best thing that I knew how to do as far as like research was like, I was like, well, let me go to this casting, and I was like, let me cast for Arizona Fashion Week and I'll try to like go to all these castings. I saw Phoenix Swim Week and I saw these different things and I was like, I'll just try them all. And, if I get them, great. And if not, then maybe I'll get it the next year, or maybe that's not aligned for me. And so it'll help me meet people that'll show me where I'm supposed to be. Right.
Yeah.
But leading up to that, I literally would like go back and watch old seasons of America's Next Top Model, or like I would YouTube stuff, or I would just do whatever research that I could. And like I said, I signed up for like some online trainings. And then I like one day stumbled across Shannon's Posing 101, I think it was, on Instagram. I happened to be in town that weekend, so I signed up for that. And then the more that I like came across, like I did her Runway 101, the more I came across things like that, I was like, I need to start getting in the room with these people because this is helping me learn exponentially faster than just watching America's Next Top Model, even though that was still insightful and whatnot.
That's just crazy how that, like, you're going down that whole path just from that one, like, Phoenix Fashion Week experience. You really, like, just, like,
Truly
just grabbed it and, like, ran with it. So what's been just one of your, like, pivotal moments, let's say, like, for fashion so far, or like as a model? When did you feel like you're starting to create something out of this?
That's a really good question. Honestly, one of my most pivotal moments was that right before, so I made top 40 with Phoenix Fashion Week, and then I was really, blessed and lucky to end up making Arizona Fashion Week and Phoenix Swim Week as well. So I got to do all three in those first like few months that I would say that I really started, which was like last April.
Yeah.
And, prior to that, like I said, I'd been doing training and whatnot, but like once I was like really in those reps, I feel like that's when I started to like exponentially grow. But right before Phoenix Fashion Week, it was like 2 days beforehand, the company that I had been with for a super long time, without getting into the details, like we ended up parting ways. And so that was really, really difficult, because, and that's where I was really able to had forced to draw on my experience as an athlete of like, I need to just lock in and like focus on this big thing that I've been preparing to. Like, it reminded me of going to Worlds as an athlete and, having to just be like, okay, put aside the stress of finals, put aside the, break up with your boyfriend, put aside the, family things that are going on. Like, I am here to be part of this team and to compete, and I need to like lock in to that, part of me. And so I really had to do that, like going into Phoenix Fashion Week, and I was able to do that. I was really proud of myself for like being able to kind of like execute under like a time when I was going through something difficult.
Yeah.
But while I still have, certain feelings surrounding that situation, I am grateful for all of it because I feel that God allows things to happen in our lives for specific reasons. And after that, because I was like left at a point where I'm like, okay, what now? Like I need to like reinvent myself and like figure out what I'm doing next. You know, kind of took some time, and in the weeks after that was Arizona Fashion Week, and there was like a 2-week period where there were a lot of events and networking opportunities and whatnot. And I was like, okay, let me tap into that. Let me like do everything I can to like spend this time networking. Like I have the opportunity to do so let me do that.
Yeah.
So I really like engaged in that. And then right after that, I learned about the fashion shows in Miami during Art Basel. And so I was like, well, I want to do Miami Swim Week next year. That was a goal of mine. And I was like, I've seen that by doing these other fashion weeks and getting involved with the different production companies and like kind of learning the lay of the land, if you will, with each of them, it's helped. It's been to my advantage. So maybe I go to Art Basel. Maybe I go down there and try to get cast for some of these shows, and then that'll help me eventually get cast for Miami Swim Week.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't have anything going on for the next couple of weeks. So like part of me was kind of like, is this crazy? But also part of me was like, well, let me again, like bet on myself and like take this chance to just go and see what happens. And again, I thought, what is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario?
Yeah.
And I was like, the worst case scenario is that, you know, I had all these like sky miles, right, from traveling for my job. And I was like, I can get my flight, you know, on miles. I can go down there and just like figure it out. And the worst case scenario is that I end up networking. And if I don't get cast for any of the shows, then I still will go and I'll watch and I'll meet people and I'll network and I'll figure out what I need to do to get cast in the spring.
Because you met the right people that kind of helped you with elevating your career. And of course, like you're also displaying their brand at the best possible you can too. So
right.
Like, yeah, you just had like the formula for just finding the right people to get you there.
And you say I had the formula. I complimented by you saying that, but it's like I actually didn't even have the formula. I just put myself in the room. I was just willing to like go for it.
I was just about to ask you that. Do you in your head, do you believe it to be all pretty much luck? Because I know you're very religious from the sounds of it. What do you like give credit to that?
I would say I grew up very religious, and I've kind of explored my religion, spirituality, and I feel like I actually now am like a combination of like spiritual and religious. I think it all kind of like ties together. Yeah. It's like a lot of like people saying the same thing in different words to some extent. But no, I firmly believe like that everything happens for a reason, and that that like the energy that like you put out like is returned back to you in some way. And so have I, you know, obviously throughout this whole process kind of been taking mental notes or, you know, written notes of like, you know, okay, this worked, this didn't, you know, like gotcha. I've been like learning along the way, but like I haven't always known all the answers. Sometimes I've only had like part of the answer, but I've just been like, well, let me just go and see what happens. Or I've felt like I've tried to get more in tune with myself and like aligned with like my inner voice, I guess, and like what, you know, God's calling is for me. And so then in being more attuned to that, instead of in the past, I've always been the type where I've tried to get a lot of like, I'd like ask a mentor and ask my parents and ask a friend and ask like, well, what do you think? What do you think?
Like
what
instead
do you think?
of going with your gut feeling.
Yeah. And ultimately like you start to realize that it's like you ask all those people but really you're just looking for confirmation of what you already feel like you know to be true. And sometimes you have to make a decision in the moment that you don't even have time to ask. And so it's like, it's so valuable to get in tune with that inner voice. So I've really tried to focus on that, but I feel like I've uncovered some of the formula as I've done things, but I've also learned that there isn't one formula really for anything in life. There's like certain things that like tend to work pretty well, but like rules are man-made. Rules are like made up to create some type of structure. And you know, I always reference back to when I was learning from Shannon. I would be like, okay, so, you know, you're giving me all this like modeling 101 stuff. What about this situation? What about that? And sometimes she wouldn't give me a super clear answer, and I would be like, I want the answer. Yeah. And and she'd be like, you just sometimes kind of have to like read the room, or just kind of like go with your gut feeling, or know, kind of like lean into like what you're sensing at the time. And also the creative industry evolves so rapidly. But I definitely have learned that as a model, as you're creating your own brand or whatever like niche you're trying to get into, there's just not always one direct path. Like, somebody might get cast by an agency for those same shows that I went to. And if I had tried to ask someone, well, how do you go to those shows? They might have said, oh, well, you get cast by an agency. And then I would have just been like, oh, well, don't have an agency, so I guess I can't do that. But instead I was like, let me figure out how. Maybe there's a different way. Yeah. And I've learned that like, we think that life is like this maze that we're trying to figure out, but it's really like more like a puzzle. And like the second that you realize that, you can like step outside of it and look at it from like a broader perspective. And instead of like going through the maze where you have these blinders on and you're just trying to like navigate what's already there, you can look at it and go like, okay, like I see that this is how it worked for some people, but I also see that there's a different route, and there's these hidden exits and trapdoors and all this stuff that like, if you can navigate that, that's what I feel like is like the formula that I've realized, I guess. It's like a broader thing more than just like this is how to be.
No, yeah, you explained that super
well. Honestly, I might have to like record that and like play it in the morning,
man.
Like every single, like as soon as I wake up.
Funny. Nice. So with all that, like, what's been one of your favorite shows? Like, how many have you done so far up until now?
I've done like a few smaller shows, which like every one of them has had value and like has taught me something different, I feel like.
Yeah.
I loved, and even like with the different productions here in Arizona, each of them have their own unique, like, how do I say it? Like their own, even like their own unique mission behind them. Like I feel like Phoenix Fashion Week has been around and is like really focused on developing emerging models, emerging designers, like the business behind all of it. And I just was so grateful to be part of that program. And it's like a full like model development, competition like throughout the summer.
Months, right?
Yeah, and just I had such a great experience with that. And then Arizona Fashion Week is like really trying to kind of like reinvent things and like be super creative with their venues and the way that they structure things, and I've loved being part of that. Phoenix Swim Week and the Garment League, they do things. Their whole mission is like empowering the youth, underserved youth in Phoenix, and like teaching them fashion. Like those are going to be the next designers of tomorrow, and a nonprofit. And so I've learned so much through each of those experiences and working with different people. And I think that I've taken, my past industry knowledge from the cheerleading world and seen that like there isn't like a one size fits all. Like there's different ways of doing things, and there's different target markets and different, things for different people. So I've loved all of those things. I've also really benefited from then going outside of the Arizona market and doing the Art Basel shows in Miami. Like that was a whole new oyster, right? Like that I was like, oh, like, okay, this is how things work out here.
How was it with the people? Because here in Arizona, like you're probably pretty familiar with the people, like how they, like their attitude, how they walk, if they're nice, whatever.
Yeah.
But in like Miami, did you kind of feel that same vibe, or like how was that?
A little bit. I guess like there's still always that sense of like, models for the most part are kind of like their own brand and in their own silo, and sometimes there's not as much community, but like I've definitely been pleasantly surprised by the fact that I think people expect like, oh, models are going to be catty and like mean and like unwelcoming, and like there's definitely times where like I've felt like a little bit like, I'm the outsider, I'm the new person, but a lot of times, and I know this from like the experience on the other side, again, from like being the veteran in the cheerleading world, is that sometimes people are like, oh, I thought you were really intimidating until I talked to you and you're actually so friendly. And so sometimes I try to like remind myself of that I'm like, okay, that model looks so intimidating and I like am nervous to like approach them. But then you like introduce yourself and say hi and they turn out to be the nicest person ever. So like, I feel like.
So it didn't really affect you at all to see like more experienced models like doing their walk, like you were like just focused on yourself. You didn't really like think about anybody else?
So that's a great question. And this is actually something that I really learned through being part of Phoenix Fashion Week with Top 40 is that like we were constantly like working on our walks during the practices and we would have walk-offs and whatnot. And like what I learned is that, yeah, walk-offs, right? There's your modeling term for the day. What I learned through that is that like, and this is like such a valuable lesson that I've like taken into the rest of life with me, is that the feeling of like envy or jealousy and the feeling of admiration is actually the exact same feeling, just channeled differently. And so when I would like watch someone and be like, oh, like I wish I was that good at walking, or I wish that I wish that I like, instead of feeling like any sort of animosity, I would be like, heck yeah, girl, like you go off, go off, queen, like, right? Like, and again, that probably stems from being a cheerleader too, that like people have been like,
everybody.
Yeah, people have been like, you're the ultimate hype woman or whatever. But like at the end of the day, if you can let that like simmer of like that envy, or you can be like cheer that person on and like celebrate them and their win and their like high moments. And then you actually end up like, it's so beneficial in so many ways because one, that person feels celebrated. Mm-hmm. Two, they're going to now support you in whatever that looks like. If you're the winner the next time, they're now cheering you on.
Yeah.
Or if you want to be as good as them, the fastest way to do that is to make friends with them and like be nice to them. And then they're going to probably want to help you. If you just sit there and like glare at them and be jealous, like then nothing good comes from that, right?
For sure.
So I found kind of the same thing to be true, that once I started going outside of Phoenix, I was like, when I was in Miami, like I would introduce myself and I'd be like, oh girl, you have such a great walk. Like, how long have you been modeling? Like, strike up a conversation. Like, there's nothing, and if they're kind of standoffish, then oh well. And maybe they're having a bad day. Like, it's like not even a judgment of their character too, or maybe they're nervous. Like, there have been times where people have tried to talk to me and ask me questions, and I've just been like so in my head that I'm like, hopefully I didn't come off as cold, but I was just like in my head about something,
That's true. That's true. So what's been one of your favorites that you've done so far? Like, whether it's like your walk that you did or the clothing that you wore, like what was just one of your favorite Fashion Week experiences?
Yeah. And it's funny because I catch myself doing this when I write my captions on Instagram. I'm always like, this was such an incredible experience. And I'm like, I feel like I say that every time, but like it really every single time, like I've just been so grateful for like, I never even thought I would be doing this. And then I'm like, oh my God, I made Phoenix Fashion Week. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm walking in Miami. Oh my God, I'm walking in New York. Like, what? Yeah. Even when I was up in New York at one point, my friend Amani and I were both out there and walking in some of the shows. And we had the opportunity at one point to sit and help judge a casting on the panel. Just like in the moment, the guy that was directing it, I had been introduced to him a couple days prior by a friend. And he was like, hey, can you guys help me judge this? And I was like, I'm judging a casting in New York? Like, what?
Right? That's
Who
crazy.
would have thought, right? Uh-huh. So I think that like just, tapping into every experience I've had. But honestly, like I'll say that most recently, since I just walked in Miami Swim Week, which is still weird to hear coming out of my mouth, that was honestly such an incredible experience, and like something that a year ago I didn't even think was possible. Or like, no, like it's almost like I've never been the type to be like, oh, that would never happen. But I've always just kind of been cautious to be like, well, I need to like research that a little more to see if it's realistic. Yeah. And I think that I've started to kind of like take that out of my vocabulary, because I think realistic is like such a
made up.
Yeah, like because really like I fully believe that like wherever your focus goes, like your energy goes toward that, and wherever your energy goes, like you create your reality. And if you are focusing and researching and working on something and you are just putting all your energy toward it, you start to find opportunities and you start to see synchronicities, and you're putting your energy there, so then other people are drawn to that, and all of a sudden, like it just starts to kind of fall into place. Yeah. So I mean, walking in Miami was like so surreal, and just being on like the runway over the water, and then it was cool to have some familiar faces out there too. Justin with Nava Swimwear had his collection also showing down there. Some of my friends from Creative Council and Arizona Fashion Week were out there too, watching the shows. So to kind of like have all those worlds collide was a really cool experience, and I was really grateful to get to model at that level. And also just to get to network. The last day of shows, I actually ended up doing some interviews, like backstage interviews or red carpet interviews with an organization called Edgar Entertainment, who I had first worked with. I met him in Miami during Art Basel. I first did some stuff with him during New York Fashion Week, and then I did more interviews with him during Miami Swim Week. And that's been a really unique opportunity because I've been able to tie in like the hosting and on-camera experience that I have from the cheerleading world to fashion, and starting to meet designers and models and people from the production, and get to not only learn more but like truly just kind of tap into talk to them and like tap into that passion for storytelling that I've realized that I have.
I saw those videos too where you were talking. It's funny because I met them too when I was over there. I met Camilla. I think she's one of the models there too, but she's also one of the hosts for Edgar.
Yeah.
So like, that's sick, and like that's something that like we plan to do too, is like go out there, have a host, talk to the people. So maybe we can have you on there too. I was like, shit, you already got the experience. I was like, yeah, because I saw that and I was like, wow, that's like perfect. Like
to be able to go out and do stuff like that.
Yeah, like that's exactly what we plan to do, and like of course like meeting the people that know how to do that. So like instead of just having someone just get in front of the camera and be like, well, try your best. Like having someone that knows what to talk about, like how to get like a good story out of them or get a good reaction. So
and I've really found that like I truly have a passion for that, and also like a natural ability for it, honestly. Is that this is what we were kind of talking about before we started recording today and just chatting, but part of this whole transition of life for me into more of like the fashion world, and just in navigating like a new career field or whatnot, is that I've learned that it's like you can try to like fit a square peg into a round hole or whatever the saying is, or you can like really try to get in tune with like who you are and what you're meant to do, and like listening to your inner voice and like being still and being present. Like there's so much power in presence and in like really being attuned to like what is like what God is saying to you, what the universe is like directing you toward. And I've realized that like I have, when I was in the cheerleading world, I did everything from like the judging and scoring aspect of things to the event planning and event coordination to sales and customer service. And, I could run any aspect of a cheerleading competition, from the warm-up room to the judges stand to the announcing or the interviewing, the competition director where you're overseeing all of it. And I'm grateful for all those experiences because it's given me like that perspective of like when I see somebody running a fashion week, like I know what it's like to be that person on the headset that's like, okay, we need to get the next team out on the floor, or we need to get the next designers, models, like we're waiting on the last one. It's very similar. But ultimately, the thing that I always found that I had this natural liking and ability for was being on camera. And it goes back to that what I said earlier about like I've always loved performing on stage. Like I've loved being like in the moment, and you're almost kind of forced to be present and to have this like different level of like awareness of that present moment. And so I've been able to kind of translate that ability that I've learned and had a natural knack for from my prior job to the fashion world. And I'm still doing that in the cheerleading world to some extent. I'm just working with some different organizations now, and it's been just a huge blessing. I've learned so much. I feel like it feels like drinking through a fire hose, like the amount I've learned over the past year and about myself,
it's also
about the fashion
like
world.
you've like
all of it.
Just through the time you've paid your dues, like you've done kind of everything. Like you've done so much up to this point that like now it's just like second nature. Like you know what to do, you know who to talk to, rather than like a lot of people when they start in modeling or whatever they want to do, they do it for like a year, 2 years, and like they don't see any progress, or they're maybe building whatever they want, but
Yeah.
since they don't have that clear vision, or they don't really have the passion for it, they
Right.
think it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
But like it takes years for you to really understand the scene, what's going on,
Yeah.
all the to who to talk to, your own inner confidence, stuff like that. And then that's why like for you, I think it's so amazing how everything's happening like so quick. You've gone through so much stuff. And it's because like I feel like you've just done so much already that now
I had
like,
that foundation to
Yeah.
like build off of.
yes, and like now it's just going, like you're just going with the flow, you know, kind of what you're doing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, thank you. And I definitely get that like imposter syndrome from time to time too, where sometimes I'm like, I'm still kind of new at this, but at the same time, like I'm also learning to trust that sense of what you said, where it's like, I might be new at modeling to some extent, but you know, I had a designer the other day tell me, she's like, oh, I don't think of you as a new model. Like, I don't think of you as, you know, she's like, you know exactly what you're doing. And I've
Yeah.
had other people tell me that sometimes too, where I'm like, I'm glad they think I know what I'm doing, because I don't know if I totally do. But I have stepped into that confidence a lot more in recent months. And, you know, and that's like part of the message that I hope to like long-term be able to share with others, whether it be in the modeling world or beyond, because that's another thing I've learned through this whole thing is that like, don't be so tied to like what you're doing right now that it like blocks you from like serving your long-term purpose, because you might be meant to move into something different and you are still serving that purpose, but in a different, you know, it's everything's like a stepping stone to the next
Yeah.
thing. And but what I would love to impart to people is like, I had somebody recently, it was a huge compliment, but they were like, oh, I think of you as being so fearless. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so nice of you to say, but I definitely do not always feel that way. It's like you have to, I guess, just kind of feel the fear, but like do it anyway. And like, and just like go for it and know that like
And
I said,
own
worst
it.
case scenario, like there's really no worst case scenario. Like there's nothing that's
Yeah.
too much to overcome, like, or that you can't just like laugh at yourself or just go, okay, like I didn't get that thing, but I learned, or I made a connection. And there have been times where I've gone and cast for a designer and, you know, the other people that didn't get it were like, you know, chirping about it. Like, and I was just like, thank you so much for the experience. It was so nice to meet you. And, you know, hope to see you at the next thing. And then you engage with them on social media. And then when they do see you at the next casting, they're like, oh, I remember that girl. And then you get cast the next time. It's like,
Yeah.
don't get so caught up in like, oh, I didn't get the opportunity this time. And like, just like, let it stay in flow and just, you know, there's always a plan. There's always a purpose for all of it.
Right.
So
That's awesome. So what do you have, like, what is the goal now? Like, what are your goals for modeling, or like, where do you want to get to for just the rest of this year?
yeah. So I have Phoenix Swim Week coming up in a few weeks. I'm walking for Digital Twin on July 23rd, and then that Saturday is the 26th. Those are the main shows, or the like the day that most of the designers are showcasing, I should say. They have a few like featured showcases leading up to that. And so I'm super excited. That'll be my second year doing Phoenix Swim Week. I love working with that organization, and I definitely, I'm also finishing up with Carrie and Co., the, you know, modeling school
Nice.
here in Arizona.
Yeah.
That has been such an incredible, valuable experience. I'll graduate from that on July 30th. So
Congrats.
I'm finishing up session 2 of that.
Sick.
Yeah, and so I feel like I've really one of the things that Korea like teaches, in addition to like all the actual, you know, posing and runway and like the skills of modeling, is that they really help you hone in on like what is your personal brand and what is your, you know, your niche that you're going to try to go into. What is your purpose and your mission, and, you know, why are you doing what you're doing? And whether that's for modeling or whether that's like for the rest of your life, like why, like what do you want to give back to the world, and what is your why? And so I feel like I've really tried to like hone in on that, and I'm really working on kind of tying in the different I guess gifts and abilities that I've been given for modeling, as well as, you know, hosting, on camera, emceeing. I've also developed a love for like content creation, and that's like all kind of organically tied into things that I've been doing. So really trying to kind of tie all of that together and see how I can utilize those things moving forward, both for, you know, success on my end, but also how I can like start giving back and like helping others with those things. Cause I feel like I want to be able to, you know, I appreciate coming on here today. Like I'd love to just share my story and hopefully it can, you know, inspire someone to just like take that leap of faith that they feel like too nervous to do. You know, something I like learned through Korea is that it's interesting, my different backgrounds in cheerleading, modeling, and then, you know, being, I also am a voiceover artist. So I do voiceover work.
I was going to ask you about that.
Voiceover work and emceeing and hosting. And it's like what I want to do ultimately is to like serve others, is I want to, you know, inspire others, which is that modeling piece of it, encourage others, which is the cheerleading part of my life, and then to like be a voice for others, or to, you know, show them that they can do something that they didn't think they could do before, and that's like the voiceover, you know, part of it, or the on, you know, MC aspect. Right. So I'm hoping to just continue refining those pieces of my brand, and, you know, I've kind of have a couple things that I've been contacted about. I'm not sure that I'll do all of them, but there's some, you know, bigger shows coming up in the next few months that I'm hoping to attend. So we'll see
like you
what
said,
pans out.
Like you said earlier, like your growth is happening, so you gotta know what's beneficial, which one's like maybe like they could choose someone else. But
that's been a big thing too. And like even going back to like Phoenix Fashion Week, you know, Brian always like really impressed upon us that it's like you have to kind of know what your brand is and know what your like end goal is, so that you know which things to say yes and no to. And that can be difficult for me sometimes, especially as a recovering people pleaser, is that like I love to, you know, I feel like I can always find value in any experience, but at the same time, like I am continually like refining my brand. And like a great Matt Gottesman quote that I heard recently, hopefully I say it right, is that like alignment is not a one-time like decision or thing that you notice, it's a constant recalibration. And so you're constantly like staying in tune and in touch with like what you're meant to be doing and what's right for you at this point in your life. You do want to keep that end goal in sight, but like sometimes we don't know exactly what the formula is or how we're going to get there. And so, you know, my overarching biggest goals is to like continue just checking in with like, okay, God, like what do you have for me next? Where do you want me to be? Like, am I meant to say yes to this, or do I need to leave space for a different opportunity that's more aligned? Even though this sounds, you know, cool and fun at the time, or, you know, whatnot, I feel like, you know, moving forward, I'm really in that phase of this journey where I think that one of my strengths is that I can be very versatile, but I also feel that I need to somewhat hone in on what I'm more so meant to be doing now that I've kind of like cast my nets far and wide and sowed a lot of different seeds, kind of start to, again, tune back into me. And instead of being like out sowing the seeds, now I'm kind of seeing like what is returning back to me and what feels aligned. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Exciting things coming up.
Right? Got any last words?
No, I honestly loved pretty much everything you said. There was a lot that I kind of, not definitely nowhere near to the extent that you've kind of, but like the realizations of like different things in life. Like I can relate to a lot of things you say. So it was a pleasure like listening to you and your story. So
thank you. I appreciate that. It's great to finally meet you and you know, connect with you guys. And thank you so much for having me.
Like your journey's been amazing. So like definitely wanted to have you on and talk about everything you're doing. You're definitely like growing fast. So like I want a lot of people to see like just how inspiring it is, at least to me too. So like, thank you. I think it's awesome.
Thanks. It's been a huge blessing. I feel really grateful for all of it, and, you know, excited for what's to come.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Great talk.